What up, everybody? It's your boy Kentario, and I'm back again for another episode of Christ and Comic Books. And today we are going to be looking at the hit series that just released its last episode of the show, Attack on Titan, aka Shingeki no Kyojin. Now, what I want to do first is I want to break down what the series is actually about. And this is primarily for those that have never seen Attack on Titan and wondering, one, is it worth it to watch? And two, if it's okay for Christians. They need to know what they're getting into. Not only that, today we'll be talking about what I liked about the anime and the manga, as well as what I did not like about the anime and the manga. And finally, we will end on the Christian perspective for this series. Now, before we get into it, I want to let you guys know to make sure that you hit that subscribe button as well as hit that like button. That way, this platform can start growing here on YouTube. And also, if you click the link on my page, then you can find that we also have a Patreon where we take it episode per episode for each arc of a series. Currently working on the big three, and we look at one, what the message is within each of these arcs, as well as can the gospel be found in this instance as well, as we're watching these instances. And so I look forward to doing that with you guys. And where in this video, we'll be fully breaking it down as an overall review of Attack on Titan. A separate video will be done to actually break down the final episode, because I believe there's so much to be found within it in a general sense as far as teaching and lessons, as well as from a biblical point of view. And I look forward to pointing all of those things out with you guys. Now, let's get into it. Now, first and foremost, let me go ahead and tell you guys that Attack on Titan is a series about a group of people who have been stuck within the walls of a place called Shingeki. And the reason for this is because in the world around them, all they know is that there are Titans waiting to devour them. And amongst all of these ventures that they're trying to take in and getting out into the world, seeing what more is out there, are they learning of their threat? For example, that they can't even be digested and released from their body. They just simply eat them. It's not nourishment. They're just constantly targeting human beings, amongst several other things that they're discovering about Titans that they did not know before. Now, our story, in fact, focuses on the main character known as Eren Yeager. And Eren Yeager, as a young boy, of course, wanted to be able to venture out into that world to see what was going on, no matter what Titan he would have to face. But he was getting prepared for that adventure until the moment occurred where the walls were busted through by an even bigger Titan than they've ever seen before, kicking open the walls. And Titans began to flood into this level of the walls. Even more so, although Eren and his friends Armin and Mikasa were able to survive the attack, it was true that his mother did not. And this led to Eren being consumed with rage and vengeance against all Titans, making a declaration that he will wipe all of them out. This leads us on the journey of him beginning to train so that he can get ready for that battle. Sadly, although yes, this will be a spoiler, something that you'll see early on in the series, he himself, in saving Armin's life, ends up getting consumed by a Titan.
Whoa, hey.
Only for him to later be transformed into a Titan himself. Now, where the series already started out with the questions of why are we inside these walls and why do Titans attack us, do we learn that humans can become Titans. So now this whole entire adventure is to fully understand what Titans are and why we are in this situation, and are other humans Titans as well. And you're going on this journey to discover the reasons for these massacres, what's the reason for hatred, and where that will lead you, and is there a possibility of finding peace and freedom. Now, as we're getting into this video and we're going to be pointing out exactly, my likes and dislikes of the anime, I actually want to be able to point out my hatred of the series, what I don't like about the series. And for you all to understand that, I gotta point some things out. One of those things being that I originally actually started collecting the manga after seeing the first couple of episodes. After seeing what happened to Eren's mother, I understood that resolve immediately. As a matter of fact, I'm a mama's boy, so seeing him lose his mother, I was just like, that would be me. I would be on this rampage. I would want to fight for her life, take out all the Titans. I get it. And so I was so deeply consumed with that to the point where I wanted to buy the manga. So I started collecting the series. But as time got on, one of my first issues with the series was, yes, the art style was kind of hard, being that I watched the anime. The art style is extremely different between the two. I'm not kidding. Now, the art style definitely does develop like all anime and manga series do. But this one was a bit extra difficult to get through at first. But, you know, you get to the good stuff, you get intrigued with the story, you get intrigued with the battles, not knowing who you're going to lose, You get caught up in what everyone else likes, which we'll talk about later. But then it got to this point where the questions that I had about what's happening, the mysteries that were being introduced within this series, began to grow and grow and grow and grow.
Because sometimes in life you're gonna start slow. That's okay.
While my answers were very few far between. And you're almost up to, I think, like the second, or you're up to about the third season at this point, with so many more questions than you had answers. And I felt as though my concern really was that they're not going to be able to answer all the questions. So long story short, I ended up trading the series over to a friend of mine for a different manga series that he had at the time. Sadly, I don't remember what that series was, especially since Attack on Titan went from being something so frustrating to me to being extremely attractive, and even more so, something that arguably might be one of the best series for Christians. Again, we'll talk about that later. But I really hated the magnitude of mystery at that point in the past for me, so that's what turned me off to the series. Now, not only that, one of the biggest things that I could not stand about this series more than anything else, it's not the bloodshed, it's not the Titans, it's not the political problems that are being introduced in there. I think they actually handled all of those things extremely well. But what's actually was a bigger frustration for me, and the audience can fight me for it all they want to, is I can't stand Eren Yeager. What? I don't like series where the entire time I'm hating the main character. The main character is frustrating for one reason or another. I don't care how you slice it or how you dice it. The main character is the primary reason why an audience ends up getting into a series to begin with. They don't watch it for the side characters. You watch it for the main character who's being complemented by his side characters, who's being complemented or contrasted to his villains. That's why you watch a series. And in the early stages of the series, again, getting all the way up to season 3, that was a part of my frustrations. When someone makes a declaration or a vow or a promise, they're supposed to walk that out in its fullness. And what I mean by that is the issue that I see Eren Yeager struggle with early on through the series, again, getting all the way to season 3, was he's talking all this game, he's going to be the best, but he constantly drops the ball, loses or fails in his missions, and ignorantly redirects all of that rage to another source, to another source, and to another source. So let's start out from the beginning. You know, he started training with the Survey Corps. There's 3 military corporations involved within those that are in the walls of Shinganshina. You have the garrison, you have the military police, and then you have the scouts. The scout regiment is what Eren ends up joining with so they can go out into the world, yes, to fight the Titans, but find out if there's more out there, is there a way we can beat them, etc. And so in his training, you basically see him end up not becoming top of the class, not becoming second or even third best. He's like really in the middle. He's not really any better than anybody else, which contributes to him even getting eaten in the first place. Now, I don't necessarily hold it against him having been devoured, but when you look at it in the general sense of you were talking all this game just to end up to getting eaten. Now, you could argue, well, he was a Titan the whole time. That's really just a plot armor device that covers him. Otherwise, he would have just been devoured, and that would have been the end of Eren Yeager. And so that, on a very minuscule level, is a loss for me. Not only that, even in him getting the Titan powers, you might want to cheer for him. We have someone that can actually help these people get out of these walls, someone who can contend with the Titans. While yes, that looming question, how are humans Titans? Are all Titans humans? Blah, blah, blah. You getting these questions, but you feel like there's a leg up now that you got Eren. Only to find out that Eren's not the biggest leg up that we think he is. He goes from finding out he has these powers to, when we contend with the other humans that have Titan powers, they're mopping the floor with him. When he is contending with some humans that want to fight with him, they're mopping the floor with him. Let's use this as an example. Annie, when he's chasing after Annie, the female Titan, in those bouts, he has about 3 fights with her, and he loses all 3 of them. They have one straight fight, he loses. They have another fight in the woods. They're chasing her down. They get to her. He has scouts with him to help bring her down. They're dying. He's losing the fight. Only for Levi to come in and do most of the damage and lead to them being able to capture her and bring her into the walls. Now she breaks out of this situation. And as she's escaping, he's chasing her down. And guess what? She stops him from stopping her and gets to the point of being able to get over the walls. Now, the only reason she didn't get through the walls was because Mikasa stopped her, and he got to come in with a finishing blow after Mikasa intervened. Otherwise, Annie would have gotten out of that situation. It really wasn't because of Eren. The same thing happens with Reiner. Reiner dominates him over and over and over again. At least 3 fights is Eren losing a fight against Reiner. He finally starts winning after about the 4th fight. He gets a level up there in the 3rd fight, and he completely starts dominating by the 4th. But it took him this long to be able to contend with any of the people that he's been in opposition with. Now again, I'll level with you. Well, they're fully trained with being Titans. Sure, I get that. I can see where you're leveraging that. But at the same time, he was already talking this big game. Couldn't keep up. He was already mid-level when it came to training to be a scout. So all of that was already reflecting in his character from the jump. And so that's, again, where I lose that level of respect for him as an MC. Just for it to end up being that he's been in control of all of this, and 2, he decided on mass genocide.
Whoa, hey.
Being the only answer to delivering his people, which I cannot, for no reason, side with. I love the story overall. The story itself is absolutely amazing because where I had the frustrations, they're not answering my questions. By season 4, they're answering all those questions. They're clearing up all of this confusion. They're introducing who the real problems were. They're introducing the history that led up to all of these problems to begin with. And it was just like, you know what? I can barely remember all the questions, but all the questions that I know for a fact I needed answered, that was so large, they're being answered. That's great. They were able to answer these. And you don't have that happen oftentimes with a lot of series. Some series have less mysteries than Attack on Titan, and they never address them all. And you're just like, oh, plot hole, or they forgot this, or they forgot that. Naruto has that problem. Naruto has a lot of unanswered questions.
Wait a minute.
And again, where I was extremely frustrated with Eren Yeager at the beginning, the way that we find out what he was actually in position for, what he's capable of, and what he decides to do, I feel the tragedy. And I feel the empathy, although I hate Yeagerism. I get what brings him to this point. I get what contributed to the outcomes of the series. And so that's where it's just like, oh, that's why Eren was like this. Oh, that's why Eren went through this. And so it's just like, now that I get that, I feel a lot better about how he played out. I actually feel a lot better. The way also in this series that they do a great job of balancing out the incorporation of their side characters. Everyone on some level is contributable. As a matter of fact, you have everyone playing their part. Whether they be a Titan, whether they be a normal human, whether they be a superhuman, whether they be somebody that wasn't even on their team from the beginning of the show. You see everybody make a difference in some way, shape, or form. One of the things that I really love about a good anime series that Attack on Titan does so very well, the emotional switch-ups. You go from feeling as though someone's a friend to feeling as though they're an enemy. You go from feeling as though someone's an enemy to feeling as though they may be a friend. Although there's someone I will never forgive. If you've watched the series, if you've read the manga, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I will never forgive her for what she did. Can't do it. And I can get away with it as a Christian because she's animated. Yep. But for them to put you through that also leads me to that next point, where you're not guaranteed to keep everybody that you love in this series. You could lose anyone at any point in time, and you'd have to live with that loss. There's no resurrection, there's no coming back, there's no surprise revisitation, none of that. And you don't see some of those losses coming. And so it weighs on you heavily when that happens. You don't see the betrayals coming. It weighs on you heavily. And if a series can keep me from predicting its outcome, the series has done its job, at least for me. If I can't predict it, that's an absolutely amazing series. Even if I can predict it, but you keep me on my toes, I can tolerate, predicting a series. But this one, no, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know how they were going to end it. I don't know what this was going to lead to. So you had to stay tuned in. That's all of these things are what make Attack on Titan an extremely amazing series, in my opinion. Now, let's get into the Christian perspective of Attack on Titan. And so, first off, let me go ahead and tell you guys, I had to get suited up for this. I couldn't just do this, like myself. I wanted to look good, so I was just like, you know what, let me get the merch. Let me get my Attack on Titan merch real quick. So I had to become a part of the Survey Corps. I thought this was absolutely perfect. I had to get me a copy for myself. It looks good. I know, it looks really, really good. But in this Christian perspective, one of the first things I will go ahead and say is that Attack on Titan is in fact a series with 100%, in my opinion, approval for a Christian to watch or read.
Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for.
Attack on Titan is perfect for Christians. Here's one of the things that contributes to this result. Is I made a TikTok actually on this talking about Attack on Titan as a story as if God never brought the flood. Now, a lot of you are probably just thinking like, no, it's not because of this, because of that. Don't be over technical. It's a joke. It's a joke. Attack on Titan is a story as if the flood never happened. The issue with that occurred with Genesis chapter 6 as to why God brought the flood in the first place was because humanity was going to be wiped out if the warfare between humans and Titan and the giants continued. And so God intervened by bringing the flood. What we see in Attack on Titan is the overbearing pressure that giants constantly put on humanity to the point of them possibly being wiped out. Whether we're looking at it from the standpoint of the people living inside the walls, whether we look at it from the standpoint of the rumbling, where Eren calls on all of these colossal titans to come and stomp out humanity, where he succeeds in stomping out 80% of the human populace. So to see that he got all the way to that breaking point, and for war to continue even after the end of the series, speaks to the volumes of what God himself was actually concerned about in Genesis chapter 6. Now, to bring clarity to Genesis chapter 6, what happened was the sons of God began to get with the daughters of men. There's a lot of speculation as to what that exactly means, but it's been concluded that this means that either the hosts of heaven or angelic entities, fallen angels, whatever the case may be with them, began to mate with human women and began to have children. When they started to have children, they had what was known as Nephilim. I like to joke and say Niflheim. They ended up having Nephilim, which otherwise translated to them simply being giants. And these giants began to, again, continue to take women, massacre people, commit mass genocides, attacks, all of these other things, assaults. So much atrocity was taking place between man and these giants. Now, here's the issue, because you might be thinking, well, why didn't God just fight for the humans? The thing was, what contributed to this shift to being with these giants, or being with the fallen angels, was that humanity began to seek everything else. They wanted to worship other things, the hosts of heaven. They wanted to worship these principalities. They wanted to worship other gods rather than seeking the true and living God. That's why Genesis chapter 6 also points out that Noah was the only righteous person, because out of any human being on the planet that at that time, he was the only one pursuing God. Because he was the only one pursuing God, did God speak to him to save his family from the flood that was coming. And so that's one of those, more interesting things about that. It's not that God just didn't like the way that they were living and so I'm gonna wipe them out. It's that they were already on the path to destroying themselves. So I brought the flood to wipe them out. And that is one of the hugest lessons. And he did this for the redemption of man, not for their destruction. Now you might be thinking, well, if Eren's doing it to cause mass genocide, for one, 2, to make his friends look good and look as heroes, and 3, to do some form of bringing peace. The truth of the matter is, Eren couldn't see past, because he has vision of the past, the present, and the future. Sorry to bring such confusing information to the table for you guys, being that you may not know this, but the Attack Titan, which is the Titan that Eren had and is able to interact with, retain the memories of, and see the past, present, and future for anyone that ever has been an Attack Titan. Being that the line of Titans ended with Eren can't see past that point. So although Eren put together this plan to redeem his own people and hopefully bring peace, he didn't know the end that would bring. So the difference between Eren and, let's say, God in this instance is God knew what it would bring for him to bring the flood to save Noah's family. And the thing about that is, although God knew how things may fall, God also had a hope that his name would be maintained in the world, that his people would have an opportunity to be saved. And seeing as though Jesus came to live, die, resurrect, and go be with the Father and send down the Holy Spirit, that he succeeded where Eren actually failed. But again, to see this correlation between giants being in the series and that of the gospel is one of those things that I think is extremely beautiful about Attack on Titan. You have, on some level, an animated illustration of life with Titans, and we could get a taste of what it might have been like in Genesis chapter 6. And I'll go ahead and tell you guys right now, I don't read the book of Enoch, nor do I really recommend it to Christians, mainly because I've seen so many people start giving up the Bible itself and the Word of God to pursue more of those illustrations and storylines because it seems way more attractive or intriguing or detailed. And they think that is way more true, where it's actually been documented that stuff is not canonically true, at least from the biblical narrative and consistency that we have with the actual Bible itself. So be very careful of diving into, oh, giants were in the Bible, so let me find other texts for giants. Be very careful with that. Go in there with an interest and maybe to kind of hear some, I guess you could say other perversion meaning like a distortion of the original. That's what I mean by perversion. You can go look at these other perversions, but don't allow them to establish your doctrine and the gospel within your heart. So be extremely careful of that. Now, not only that, of course, like I said prior in the likes and dislikes, it's the blood and gore. One of the realest things about the Bible is the Bible actually has a lot of blood and gore in it. And that's something that if we want to be real about how things are in Scripture, we have to also be real about that. And that's where I would say that's actually a positive marker for Christians, because we can't act like those things don't happen. We can simply shout from the rooftops about the love of God, and that is definitely true. But we cannot act like God hasn't judged people and judged them firmly, judged them harshly, brought darkness upon them, brought destruction upon them, called for his own soldiers to unalive a group of people, which I partially grasp the reason why God did those things. It doesn't any less make it dark and scary to know that those things had to happen, even at the dictation of God our Father. Now, not only that, I think another thing too that contributes to the series being great for Christians is that concept of people banding under Aaron Yeager, who demonstrates himself to be this martyr, if you will, for the people, a person who's willing to do whatever it takes to take out the opposition to, his own people because of how badly that they have been oppressed. This kind of actually, in my opinion, gets to a step that a lot of the Israelites back during the time of Jesus's life, and even now, especially those that don't believe that Jesus actually is the Messiah, that Jesus actually is the Messiah, they want him to come in this vengeful mentality to fight for them and just simply judge humanity rather than having given himself so that humanity could have life. I want you to notice that contrast or anti-Christ-like behavior of Aaron, because Aaron thought it better to wipe out all of humanity to save his own people versus the opportunity to really show themselves to be different and live out life in the world. Whether they're being persecuted and unalive for being different as Titans, they were yet still different as people who wanted to demonstrate something different than everybody else has been constantly demonstrating throughout the entirety of the series. Now, granted, I will say this, that the remaining characters after the end of this are pursuing that type of peace, while everyone else is preparing for this type of war, which gives off a reversal of what Christ did, where Christ came to be the sacrifice first and then resurrected so we could have life, share that love across the world, and then the second time he comes is judgment, where in this case, Aaron comes with the judgment first. After I judge you, let's pursue the peace. Oh, I actually got to point that out. I almost forgot about Ymir. So let me rewind. The original Titan is a young lady by the name of Ymir. Ymir was once a slave under the rule of King Fritz. Her parents and her family were wiped out. She was treated as a slave, abused, assaulted, taken advantage of. And in one instance did she try to flee for her life. And in her fleeing for her life, she came into a tree and she fell down into this hole, and this parasite-like thing attached itself to her. It's actually a prehistoric animal of sorts from way back when that's believed to have existed, that latched itself onto her spine. And in latching with her, did she become the very first Titan, at least as far as the series conveys. She's the very first Titan. But in her becoming this Titan, instead of her taking out the king and his armies and his people, she ends up becoming, one, a soldier for the king to fight against his enemies, and two, a wife to the king, to the point of even having 3 kids. And at the point of King Fritz being about to be killed, she jumps in front of what would have taken his life and instead sacrifices herself. But to keep the power of the Titans alive, did King Fritz have his daughters devour the mother so that the Titan abilities would remain and continue to spread, and that the race of Eldians would continue to spread, and that the power could continue on. Now, what this did for Ymir ends up existing in this other realm where, one, she's able to shape and form using sand these other Titans. Now, let me pause here, because in her being able to manifest and create these Titans, because she's considered to be their god, that's what God did when he actually created humanity, was he created us from the dust of the earth and breathed life into us. She formed these different types of Titans from sand of the ground. There's even a great scene with Zeke, which I will do in my other video, where he's talking about how humanity likes to multiply, and he used the sand to make that reference, which really ties to Abraham saying, or God telling Abraham that his nation, his family will be numbered like the grains of sand. So to see that tie in, though whether or not that was the creator's intent or not, is still extremely amazing from a biblical point of view. This leads to the Eldians and another group known as the Marlians, who are telling the story about Ymir, who she is and what she is to them, in two totally different ways. By the Marlians, which are the regular humans, they're being depicted as demonic entities, these monsters, these devil children. And from the standpoint of the Eldians, she's looked at as a god and the savior for them, who they look to. She's blessed us with this power, and they're oppressing us for having this power. And so to see this contrast also gets into some biblical history, because that's a lot of the frustrations of being an Israelite back during those times. It's on a lot of levels in several other countries, not as much in America. What it means to be a Christian now, you're being oppressed for believing what you believe, where what you believe isn't as dark as people like to portray it is, or have people who claim to be of the faith have abused it. So to have all of these different narratives to be portrayed of the true and living God and what the true and living God's people are like or are supposed to be like is reflected in this religious narrative being told about who Ymir is and who the Eldians are. What do they mean? What's their purpose? What's the difference that they make? They cover all of this in this series, and I think it's absolutely amazing. Where Ymir is the one that is orchestrating all of this, even partnering with Aaron when he finally taps into the fullness of his power. He influences her to allow him to pull off the rumbling and to take 80% of the population, which we learn later was really all of her idea to begin with. But the purpose of it is that she ended up in bondage to, not because King Fritz had an exact power over her. He had no power over the Titans. But what he did have was, he had Ymir's heart. She could not get over him for one reason or another. She loved him. That's why she was willing to sacrifice herself that day when he was about to be killed. She gave up her life because she couldn't deny the love that she had. And now this is reflected in the character of Mikasa, because Ymir saw in Mikasa the strength to do what Ymir could not do, which was go against the person that she loved. Because Mikasa ended up having to be the one to go against the man that she loved, that being Eren Yeager. And so what this actually speaks to from a Christian point of view that I think is so very fruitful, and I don't mind repeating in the next video, this speaks to how you can bind yourself to someone or something else so strongly that you walk this out as if it's love, as if it's commitment, as if it's something that you like, as if it's the main thing that gives you pleasure. But the reality is you're in bondage to it, and two, you don't know how to be free of that bondage. But where you can truly, though you may find yourself addicted, attached, latched to this thing, you will find your freedom in actually disconnecting yourself from the corrupt, evil thing that is taking advantage of you, abusing you, and technically oppressing you. Where Ymir needed that freedom, so did Mikasa. And where the Eldians needed that freedom, that's what the significance of the entirety of the story is trying to figure out where can we truly find freedom. And I can tell you right now that as a Christian, I have truly found my freedom in Jesus Christ. No matter the suffering that this world has, no matter how much we're so far fleeted from being able to find peace and live wealthy lives, successful lives, happy lives, all of these things that we think we need to be pursuing out of this life, if you simply pursue Christ, will you have all of the things that you need added unto you, as the word says. So I encourage Christians to check out Attack on Titan. And if you are an Attack on Titan fan, but you're not a Christian, I encourage you to read the Bible, because if you like Attack on Titan, you'll like the Bible. Thank you guys so very much for checking out this video, and I pray that this was a blessing to you. And I look forward to seeing you guys next time as we review the final episode of Attack on Titan. Y'all have a blessed day. Peace.